My neighbor handed me a note inside the elevator that said, "Get out of here if you want to live." I was confused, terrified, and convinced the man had lost his mind. But something in his eyes made me trust him. So I ran. 10 minutes later I understood why. And if I hadn't listened to that stranger's warning, I wouldn't be alive to tell you this story. Before we continue, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to hear my story. If you're comfortable, let me know where you're listening from, and what time it is where you are. Now let me tell you my story. My name is Evelyn Washington and I'm 72 years old. I've lived in the Riverside apartment complex for 25 years, longer than most of the other tenants, longer than the current building manager, longer than I care to count sometimes. My late husband Arthur and I moved here when we were both still working, back when the building was new and the neighborhood was up and coming. Arthur passed away 10 years ago. Cancer took him slowly, painfully, and I've been living alone ever since. I'm a retired postal worker. Spent 35 years delivering mail, rain or shine, in neighborhoods all over the city. That job taught me things you can't learn in school. It taught me to read people, to notice details, to trust my gut when something felt off. You deliver mail long enough, you learn which houses are happy and which ones are hiding secrets. You learn to sense danger before you see it. After Arthur died, I thought about moving. The apartment felt too big, too quiet, too full of memories. But this was our home. These walls had heard our laughter, our arguments, our late-night conversations about everything and nothing. I couldn't leave, so I stayed, and I made peace with the silence. My days fell into a comfortable routine. Morning coffee on the balcony, a walk to the nearby park, grocery shopping on Tuesdays and Fridays, church on Sundays, phone calls with my daughter Karen, who lives 2 hours away and worries about me constantly. "Mama, you shouldn't be living alone at your age," she'd say. And I'd tell her the same thing every time. "Baby, I've been taking care of myself since before you were born. I'll be just fine." I knew all my neighbors, or at least I used to. The Hendersons in 4A had been there almost as long as me. Sweet couple, both retired teachers. Mrs. Chen in 3B made the best dumplings and always brought me some during holidays. Old Mr. Henderson in 2D was nearly deaf but always waved when he saw me. But things started changing about 8 months ago. First, the Hendersons moved out. Sudden, like, no warning. One day they were there, the next day a moving truck was loading up their furniture. I caught Mrs. Henderson in the hallway. "Dorothy, what's going on? You're leaving?" She looked nervous, wouldn't meet my eyes. "We found a place closer to our grandchildren," she said quickly. "Time for a change. But you love it here. You always said." "Things change, Evelyn." Her voice was tight. "Sometimes you have to know when to leave." Before I could ask more, her husband called her and she hurried away. I never saw them again. Then Mrs. Chen left. Then the young family in 2A. Then Mr. Patterson. One by one, the people I'd known for years were disappearing. Replaced by strangers who never made eye contact, never said hello, never seemed to live normal lives. The couple who moved into 4B were the strangest. They took the Hendersons' old apartment, directly above mine. Young, maybe early 30s. The man was tall, thin, with darting eyes that never settled on anything. The woman was pretty but hard-looking, like life had worn her down. They moved in at night, which I thought was odd. Who moves furniture at 11 p.m.? I tried to be neighborly, baked them a welcome pound cake, knocked on their door the day after they moved in. The woman answered, opening the door just a crack. "Yes? Hello, dear. I'm Evelyn from 4C, right next door. Just wanted to welcome you to the building." I held out the cake. She looked at it like I was offering her poison. "Thanks," she said flatly. Taking it. She didn't open the door wider, didn't invite me in, didn't even tell me her name. "Well, if you need anything, we won't." And she closed the door in my face. I stood there for a moment, stunned. In 25 years I'd never been treated so rudely by a neighbor. But I told myself maybe she was just stressed from the move. Maybe she'd warm up. She didn't warm up. Neither did her partner. In the weeks that followed, I tried nodding hello when I saw them in the hallway. They'd look right through me like I wasn't there. I stopped trying after a while. But I couldn't stop noticing things. They had visitors at all hours. Different people coming and going, never staying long, sometimes just a few minutes. I'd hear knocking on their door at midnight, at 2 a.m., at 4 a.m. Quick conversations I couldn't make out. Then footsteps leaving. I heard strange noises from their apartment. Sounds I couldn't identify, mechanical humming, things being moved around, occasional crashes, and smells sometimes too. Chemical smells that would seep under my door make my eyes water. Once I mentioned it to Mr. Rivera, the building manager. He was a new hire, only been there about 6 months. Replaced the old manager who'd retired suddenly. Mr. Rivera, have you noticed anything odd about the couple in 4B? He got this look on his face, nervous, shifty. Odd? No, they're fine, they pay their rent on time. Why? It's just, the smells sometimes, and the visitors at all hours. Mrs. Washington, I really don't think we should be gossiping about other tenants. His tone was sharp. Everyone deserves their privacy. I was taken aback. I'm not gossiping, I'm concerned about safety. The building is perfectly safe. Now if you'll excuse me. He walked away, leaving me standing in the lobby feeling like a meddling old woman. So I stopped mentioning it. But I didn't stop noticing. There was one other tenant I talked to regularly, Mr. James from apartment 3C, 1 floor below me. He'd moved in about a year ago, quiet man, mid-60s, always dressed neatly, always polite. We'd exchange pleasantries in the elevator or hallway. Good morning, Mrs. Washington. Good morning, Mr. James. How are you today? Fine. And you? Can't complain. That was usually the extent of it. Surface level friendly but not intimate. I didn't know much about him. He said he was retired, lived alone, kept to himself. I respected that, but lately I'd noticed something different about Mr. James. He seemed worried, nervous, always looking over his shoulder, checking the hallway before he left his apartment. Dark circles under his eyes like he wasn't sleeping. One afternoon, about 2 weeks before everything happened, I caught him in the elevator. Mr. James, are you all right? You look tired. He startled at my voice, then forced a smile. I'm fine, Mrs. Washington, just not sleeping well lately. Is something bothering you? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, in a low voice, Mrs. Washington, just be careful, things aren't what they seem around here. What do you mean? The elevator reached his floor. He stepped out, then turned back to me. Just be careful, he repeated, and trust your instincts. You seem like a woman with good instincts. The doors closed before I could respond. I thought about his words for days. What did he mean? What wasn't what it seemed? I almost knocked on his door to ask, but something stopped me. Fear? Maybe, or the sense that I didn't really want to know. I wish I had asked. Maybe I would have been more prepared for what came next. 2 weeks after that elevator conversation, on a Tuesday afternoon, I did what I always did on Tuesdays. I went grocery shopping. The store was just a few blocks away, close enough to walk, which I liked. Kept me active, kept my legs strong. I took my time at the store, carefully selecting my fruits and vegetables, chatting with the cashier I'd known for years. Just a normal Tuesday. I walked back to the apartment building around 3 p.m. carrying 2 bags of groceries. Not too heavy, I'd learned my limits. Entered the lobby, pressed the elevator button, waited. The elevator arrived. Doors opened. Mr. James was inside. He looked worse than I'd ever seen him. Pale, sweating, hands trembling slightly. His eyes were wide with something I recognized immediately. Fear, raw, genuine terror. Oh, hello, Mr. James, I said, stepping into the elevator with my groceries. He didn't respond, just stared at me with those frightened eyes. The doors closed. Mr. James, are you all right? You don't look... In one quick motion, he stepped close to me and pressed something into my hand. A piece of paper folded small. Read it when you're alone, he whispered urgently. Do what it says. Trust me, please. Before I could respond, the elevator reached my floor. The doors opened. Go, he whispered. Now. Confused and unsettled, I stepped out. The doors closed behind me, taking Mr. James down to his floor. I stood in the hallway, heart pounding, the folded paper clutched in my hand. What had just happened? Was the man crazy? But his eyes, the fear in his eyes had been real. That wasn't crazy. That was someone who was terrified of something very real. I hurried to my apartment, fumbling with my keys, dropping a grocery bag in my haste. I got inside, locked the door behind me, and only then did I unfold the paper. The handwriting was shaky, rushed. Get out of here if you want to live. Leave the building now. Don't go back to your apartment. Don't tell anyone. Just go. I'll explain later. Trust me. I read it 3 times, my hands shaking more with each reading. Get out of here if you want to live. My first thought, this man has lost his mind. My second thought, but what if he hasn't? I stood in my living room, groceries still in my hands, trying to think clearly. This was insane. Leave my apartment? Based on a note from a man I barely knew, it was ridiculous. But Mr. James had never struck me as insane. In all our interactions he'd been rational, calm, measured. The fear I'd seen in that elevator wasn't the fear of a paranoid person. It was the fear of someone who knew something terrible. And his words from 2 weeks ago echoed in my head. Things aren't what they seem around here. Trust your instincts. What were my instincts telling me now? They were telling me to run. 72 years of life. 35 years of reading people, reading situations, trusting my gut. Every instinct I had was screaming at me. Listen to him. I made my decision in seconds. I set down my groceries. No time to put them away. I grabbed my purse, which I still had over my shoulder. Phone inside, wallet inside, keys inside. Everything I needed. I didn't change out of my comfortable walking shoes. I didn't grab a coat even though it was cool outside. I didn't take anything else. I just left. But I was smart enough not to take the elevator. Whatever Mr. James was afraid of, I didn't want to risk running into it. I took the stairs, moving as quickly as my 72-year-old legs would allow, holding the railing for support. 4 flights down, my knees protesting, my breath coming hard. But I didn't stop. I reached the ground floor, pushed open the back door, the one that led to the alley behind the building. I didn't want to go through the main lobby, didn't want to see anyone explain anything. The cool air hit my face as I stepped outside. I walked quickly, not quite running, didn't want to attract attention but moving with purpose. Away from the building. Away from whatever danger Mr. James had warned me about. I headed toward the park about 3 blocks away. It was public, open, safe. People would be there. I could sit, catch my breath, figure out what to do next. As I walked, I second-guessed myself with every step. What was I doing? Leaving my apartment, my belongings, based on a cryptic note. Karen would say I'd finally lost it. Maybe I had. But I kept walking. I reached the park, found a bench near the playground where some children were playing. I sat down heavily, my legs grateful for the rest. My heart was still pounding, partly from exertion, partly from fear. I pulled out my phone. Should I call someone? Karen? The police? And tell them what? That my neighbor gave me a scary note, so I ran away from my apartment. They'd think I was senile. I sat there for about 10 minutes, trying to calm down, trying to think rationally. The fear that had driven me out was starting to fade, replaced by embarrassment. I was about to get up, go back to my apartment, and pretend this whole thing never happened. And then I heard it. Boom! The sound was massive, earth-shaking, like thunder and a car crash and an explosion all rolled into one. It came from the direction of my apartment building. I jumped to my feet, spinning around. In the distance, I could see it. Smoke. Black, billowing smoke rising into the sky from exactly where my building stood. Oh my God, I whispered. Then came the sirens. Multiple sirens from every direction, fire trucks, ambulances, police cars, all converging on that spot. My legs gave out. I sat back down on the bench, trembling violently. The building, my building, the place I'd lived for 25 years. If I'd stayed, if I'd ignored the note, if I hadn't trusted Mr. James, I would be dead. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I started crying right there on the park bench, sobbing like I hadn't sobbed since Arthur died. I don't know how long I sat there crying. Eventually I became aware of other people in the park, all looking toward the smoke, murmuring to each other. Must be a fire. Looks like an explosion. That's the Riverside complex, isn't it? I had to get up. I had to go see. On shaking legs I walked toward my building. As I got closer the chaos became clearer. Police had cordoned off the area. Fire trucks surrounded the building. Firefighters running everywhere. Ambulances were parked. Paramedics treating people. The building itself was devastated. The entire 4th floor, my floor, was a blackened, smoking ruin. Windows blown out, walls collapsed. The 3rd floor below showed heavy damage too. I stood behind the police tape staring in horror. Mom, do you live here? A police officer approached me. Yes. I live on the 4th floor. Apartment 4C. His expression changed to one of concern. 4th floor? Ma'am, You need to come with me. We need to make sure you're okay. He led me to a triage area where paramedics checked me over. I was fine physically, I hadn't been in the building after all, but I was in shock. What happened? I kept asking. What happened to my building? There was an explosion, the paramedic told me gently. Apartment 4B, we think. The investigation is still ongoing. 4B. The strange couple, directly next to my apartment. If I'd been home, I whispered. The paramedic looked at me with understanding. You're very lucky you weren't, ma'am. Lucky, or blessed, or saved by a man with a note. As they finished checking me over, I looked around frantically at the other residents who'd been evacuated. I saw faces I recognized, shocked, crying, confused, but I didn't see the one face I was looking for. Mr. James, where was Mr. James? I asked everyone I could find. Police officers, firefighters, other residents. Have you seen Mr. James? From apartment 3C. Quiet man, mid-60s. No one had seen him. I started to panic. Had he not gotten out? Had his own warning failed to save him? I grabbed a police officer. Please. I need to know if everyone got out. Mr. James from 3C, is he okay? The officer looked at his clipboard. Mom, we're still accounting for everyone. We'll know more soon. Please just stay in the designated area. I waited. Hours. It felt like. They gave us water, blankets. Some people were taken to the hospital with injuries. Some were just in shock. Finally, a police detective approached me. Mrs. Washington, Evelyn Washington. Yes. I understand you lived in 4C? Yes. But you weren't home when the explosion occurred? No, I was at the park. Lucky timing, he said, studying me. Did you notice anything unusual before you left? Any strange smells, sounds? I thought about telling him about the note, about Mr. James. But something stopped me. I didn't know the full story yet. I didn't want to get Mr. James in trouble. He'd saved my life. No, I said. Nothing unusual. I just went for a walk. The detective nodded, made some notes. We'll need a full statement from you later. Do you have somewhere to stay? My daughter. I'll call my daughter. I called Karen. She answered on the first ring. Mama? What's wrong? Baby, I need you to come get me. There's been an explosion at my building. What? Are you okay? Mama, are you hurt? I'm fine. I wasn't home when it happened, but I need you to come. I'm leaving right now. Don't move. I'm coming. While I waited for Karen, I learned more about what had happened. The explosion had originated in 4B, the apartment of the strange couple. 7 people had died. 7 people who had been in their apartments when the blast occurred. 2 on the 4th floor, 3 on the 3rd floor, 2 on the 2nd floor. My apartment was completely destroyed. If I'd been there, I would have been one of the dead. 7 people died. It could have been 8. But still no word about Mr. James. Karen arrived an hour later, tears streaming down her face. She grabbed me and held me so tight I could barely breathe. Mama, oh my God, Mama, I thought I lost you. When you called, I thought, I'm okay, baby. I'm okay. She pulled back, looking at me. How did you survive? Your apartment. They said it was destroyed. How were you not there? I hesitated. Then told her the truth. Someone warned me. A neighbor told me to leave. What? Who? How did they know? I don't know, baby. I don't know. Karen took me to her house. I stayed in her guest room, wearing her clothes since all mine were destroyed. She fussed over me constantly, bringing me tea, checking on me every hour. I knew you shouldn't be living alone, she kept saying. I knew it. I didn't argue. I was too tired, too shocked, too grateful to be alive. For 2 days I existed in a fog. I watched the news coverage of the explosion, learned more details. The couple in 4B had been running an illegal methamphetamine lab. The chemicals they used were highly volatile. Something had gone wrong, triggered the explosion. A drug lab. In my building, right next to my apartment. All those strange smells, the visitors at all hours, the chemical odors. It all made sense now. The news also revealed that the building manager, Mr. Rivera, had known about the drug operation. He'd been paid to look the other way to ensure no one reported the suspicious activities. He'd been arrested. And slowly, I understood why so many long-term tenants had left. They must have sensed something was wrong. They trusted their instincts and gotten out. I should have done the same, but I'd stayed. And I would have died if not for Mr. James. On the third day after the explosion, my phone rang, unknown number. Hello? Mrs. Washington? A man's voice. Familiar. Mr. James? Is that you? Are you all right? I'm fine. I'm safe. I'm so sorry I frightened you, but I had to make sure you got out. Mr. James, you saved my life. How did you know? How did you know about the explosion? There was a pause. Then, Mrs. Washington, I need to tell you something, but it needs to stay between us for now. Can I trust you? You saved my life. Of course you can trust me. Another pause. My name isn't really James, it's Marcus. Marcus Thompson. I'm a federal agent, DEA. I've been undercover in that building for the past year investigating the drug operation. My jaw dropped. You're an agent? Yes. We'd been building a case against the drug ring. They'd infiltrated multiple buildings in the city using apartments as meth labs. Your building was one of their major operations. But the explosion. I knew it was coming. I overheard them talking. They knew we were closing in on them. That arrests were imminent. They planned to destroy all the evidence. What they didn't plan for was how unstable those chemicals were. The explosion was bigger than they anticipated. I sat down, my mind reeling. So you warned me. I couldn't warn everyone. If I had, they would have known their cover was blown. People would have talked. The ring would have scattered. We'd have lost them all. I had to maintain my cover until the last possible moment. But you warned me, I repeated. His voice softened. Mrs. Washington, you reminded me of my mother. Every time we talked in that elevator I thought of her. She died 5 years ago, and I miss her every day. I couldn't let something happen to you. I knew you were home every afternoon. I knew your apartment was right next to theirs. I knew you wouldn't survive the blast. Tears were streaming down my face. You risked your cover for me. Yes. And I'd do it again. My mother always said that protecting people was more important than any mission. I had to save you. I had to. Mr. James, Agent Thompson, I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me yet. I need to ask you something. The police will want to interview you more thoroughly. They'll want to know how you survived. You can tell them about the note. That's fine. But please, don't reveal my identity yet. The investigation is still ongoing. We're rounding up the rest of the drug ring, and my undercover status is still useful. I won't say anything, I promised. I'll just say a neighbor warned me. I don't know why. I won't mention your name. Thank you, Mrs. Washington. I knew I could trust you. Agent Thompson? Yes? Thank you. For saving my life. For being willing to risk everything for an old woman you barely knew. Thank you. You're not just an old woman, Mrs. Washington. You're a kind, observant, wise person. The world needs more people like you. He paused. I'll be in touch again soon. Once everything is wrapped up, I'd like to visit you properly. Explain everything face to face. I'd like that. Take care of yourself, Mrs. Washington. You too, Agent Thompson. You too. He hung up, and I sat there holding my phone, crying again. But this time they were tears of gratitude. The police interviewed me more thoroughly that week. I told them about the note that a neighbor had warned me to leave. I didn't mention Mr. James by name, just said it was a man I'd seen around the building. I told them I didn't know why he'd warned me or how he'd known. They seemed suspicious of my vague answers, but they couldn't press too hard. I was a 72-year-old widow. What did I know about drug operations? 2 weeks after the explosion, the news reported a major drug bust. Dozens of arrests across the city, multiple drug labs shut down, millions of dollars in drugs and cash seized. The operation had been infiltrated by federal agents working undercover. I smiled when I saw the news. Agent Thompson had done his job. A month after the explosion, I was still living with Karen. She'd insisted, and honestly, I didn't mind. I didn't have a home to go back to. All my belongings were destroyed. 25 years of memories, gone in an instant. But I was alive. That was what mattered. I'd been working with insurance companies, trying to salvage what I could financially. It was stressful, but manageable. Karen helped me navigate the paperwork, made sure I wasn't taken advantage of. One afternoon, the doorbell rang. Karen was at work, so I answered it. Agent Marcus Thompson stood on the porch, out of his Mr. James persona. He looked different, more relaxed, less worried. He was dressed casually, not in the neat outfits he'd always worn at the building. Mrs. Washington, he said with a warm smile, I hope I'm not intruding. Agent Thompson, please come in. He stepped inside and I led him to the living room. I made us both tea, and we sat across from each other. The operation is complete, he said. All the major players have been arrested. The drug ring is dismantled. I'm free to talk about everything now. So Mr. James is officially retired? I asked with a small smile. He laughed. Yes, Mr. James is no more. I'm just Marcus now. Soon to be former Agent Marcus, actually. I'm retiring from undercover work. Retiring? But you're so young. I'm 64, Mrs. Washington. Been doing this for 30 years. After what happened at Riverside, I realized it's time. I'm tired of pretending to be someone I'm not. Tired of lying to good people like you. You didn't lie to me. You saved me. His expression grew serious. I did lie to you, though. For a year I pretended to be someone I wasn't. I watched that drug operation grow, watched them endanger innocent lives like yours, and I couldn't do anything about it because I had to maintain my cover. You were doing your job. Yes, but that doesn't make it easier. 7 people died, Mrs. Washington. I knew the explosion was coming, and I could only save one person. You. Why me? Why not the others? He was quiet for a moment. Because I'd been so focused on the mission that I'd forgotten about the people, the real people, the innocent people living their lives while this evil operated around them. When I talked to you in that elevator, when you asked if I was all right, when you showed genuine concern for a stranger, it reminded me why I do this job, to protect people like you. He leaned forward. I couldn't save everyone. If I'd sounded a building-wide alarm, the drug operators would have known their cover was blown. They would have escaped, disappeared, set up shop somewhere else. More people would have died eventually. But I could save you, and I had to try. You made an impossible choice. I made the only choice I could live with. We sat in silence for a moment. Then I said, I've been thinking a lot about that note, about trust. You wrote trust me, and I did. A man I barely knew, based on nothing but a few elevator conversations and my gut instinct. Why did I trust you? Because you're wise, Marcus said simply. You read people, you knew I wasn't crazy, wasn't dangerous. You sensed that my fear was real, that my warning was genuine. But I could have been wrong. I could have ignored the note. But you didn't, and that's what saved your life. Mrs. Washington, your willingness to trust your instincts, even when they told you to do something that seemed crazy. I thought about that. He was right. I'd spent my whole life trusting my gut as a postal worker, as a wife, as a mother, as a neighbor. That intuition had served me well. What happens now? I asked. Marcus smiled. Well, I'm retiring. Moving to a quiet town, probably. Growing a garden. Maybe getting a dog. Living a normal life for once. That sounds lovely. And I was hoping we could stay in touch. If that's all right with you. You reminded me of my mother, Mrs. Washington. You have her kindness, her wisdom. I'd like to honor that by being your friend. If you'll have me. I smiled. I'd like that very much. Marcus? Very much. He visited me several times over the next few months. We'd have tea, talk about everything. His career, my life with Arthur, our families, our hopes. He helped me find a new apartment, a safe building with a good management company. He even helped me move in, carrying boxes despite my protests that he didn't need to. 6 months after the explosion, I was settled in my new place. It was smaller than my old apartment, but it was cozy, safe. I was starting to feel at home. One afternoon I received a letter, handwritten envelope. Nice handwriting. I opened it to find a note from Marcus. Dear Mrs. Washington, I've been thinking about our friendship and how it began. Most friendships start with introductions, shared interests, common experiences. Ours started with fear, a cryptic note, and a life or death situation. Not exactly conventional. I'm writing to say that I've moved to a town not far from your new apartment. Close enough to visit, far enough to give you peace. I'd like to take you to lunch sometime, if you're willing. Somewhere nice, where we can talk properly. You trusted me once with your life, based on nothing but instinct. Now I'm asking you to trust me again. This time just with lunch. Your friend, Marcus. I laughed out loud, tears in my eyes. I immediately wrote back. Dear Marcus, you're right that our friendship started unconventionally. Not many people can say they became friends because one handed the other a death warning in an elevator. But I've learned that the best things in life often come from unexpected places. I trusted you once with my life. I suppose I can trust you with lunch. How about next Saturday? Your friend Evelyn. T.S. You should know I'm very particular about where I eat. The restaurant better be good. He wrote back immediately. Saturday it is, and I promise the restaurant will be excellent. I spent 30 years undercover learning people's secrets. I know all the best hidden gems. See you Saturday, Marcus. That Saturday, Marcus picked me up in a sensible sedan. Nothing flashy, nothing suspicious, just a normal car. We drove to a lovely little restaurant he'd discovered, a family-owned place with amazing food and warm atmosphere. Over lunch we talked for hours. About his childhood, about mine, about his mother, who he missed terribly, about Arthur, who I still loved with all my heart, about life, loss, trust, and friendship. Can I ask you something? I said as we finished our meal. Anything. Why did you really warn me? I know you said I reminded you of your mother, but there were other elderly people in that building. Why me specifically? Marcus was quiet for a moment, stirring his coffee. Then he looked up at me. Because you saw me, he said softly. Everyone else in that building looked right through me. I was just the quiet guy in 3C. But you, Mrs. Washington, you always looked me in the eye. You always asked how I was doing. You noticed when I was worried. You saw me as a person, not just a neighbor. He set down his spoon. When you've spent years undercover, years being someone you're not, years lying to everyone around you, you start to feel invisible, like the real you doesn't exist anymore. But you made me feel seen, real human. And when I knew that explosion was coming, when I knew you were in danger, I couldn't let the one person who saw me die. I couldn't. I reached across the table and took his hand. I did see you, Marcus. I saw a good man who was carrying something heavy. I didn't know what it was, but I saw the weight of it, and I see you now. The real you, and I'm grateful for your friendship. He squeezed my hand back. So am I, Mrs. Washington, so am I. It's been 2 years since the explosion. 2 years since that note in the elevator changed my life. I'm 74 now, still living in my new apartment. Karen still worries about me, but less so now that Marcus is around. He visits every week, sometimes twice. We have tea, play cards, talk about everything. He brings me flowers sometimes, fixes things around my apartment when they break. He's become the son I never had, the friend I didn't know I needed. I speak at community events now, talking about safety, awareness, trusting your instincts. I tell my story, edited of course, to protect Marcus's privacy, about how paying attention to your surroundings and trusting your gut can save your life. Don't dismiss that feeling when something seems wrong. I tell audiences, don't talk yourself out of caution. And when someone you trust warns you of danger, even if it seems crazy, listen. Marcus came to one of my talks once, sitting in the back row. Afterward he found me. You're a natural speaker. He said, your mother was too. She could command a room. I learned from the best. I told him, life taught me everything I know. No, he corrected, you taught yourself. By living, by observing, by caring about people. That's not something life teaches. That's who you are. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I'd ignored that note. If I'd stayed in my apartment that Tuesday afternoon putting away groceries, maybe making dinner, maybe watching TV, I wouldn't have heard the explosion. I would have been the explosion. But I trusted. I trusted a man I barely knew, based on nothing but intuition and a few moments of genuine human connection in an elevator. And that trust saved my life. Marcus always says I'm the brave one, that my willingness to trust him was the real act of courage. But I think he's wrong. Writing that note, risking his cover, choosing to save one person when he couldn't save everyone, that was the brave act. We saved each other. I think he saved my life with that note. And maybe, just maybe, I saved something in him by trusting it. That note in the elevator changed everything. It led me out of a building that was about to explode. Yes, but it also led me to a friendship I treasure, to a purpose I never knew I'd have, to a reminder that human connection, real genuine connection, can be the difference between life and death. Mr. James handed me a note that said, get out of here if you want to live. I trusted him and ran. 10 minutes later I understood why, and every day since, I've understood something even more important, that sometimes the people we barely know see dangers we can't see ourselves, and sometimes trust isn't built over years. But in a single moment of truth, Marcus gave me that truth. And I'm alive because I chose to believe it. That's a gift I'll never be able to repay, but I can honor it by living fully, by staying aware, by trusting my instincts, and by being the kind of person who sees others really sees them, the way I saw Marcus in that elevator. Because you never know when seeing someone, truly seeing them might save your life, or theirs. The end.